along to another Property Tribes investor interview, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Harris-Cohen. And Jason, well, I don't know where to start with you really. You're a landlord, property trader, property entrepreneur, but I guess a good place to start actually is to say that property is really in your blood. It runs in your veins, doesn't it?
That's right, Vanessa. I think my dad's always been sort of involved in property from the sort of early 70s, really investing. Started with a shop in East London, in Bethnal Green actually. So I've always had sort of big aspirations to be involved in property, to become a landlord, to be a developer myself. Maybe I watched too many TV programmes at a young age, but I've always had a sort of burning desire to really make a sort of impact in the property industry.
Now let's talk about the sort of specific activities that you undertake in the property world. First of all, what's your actual landlord journey been like? What sort of strategy have you gone for?
I think generally to sort of identify areas which we want to invest, so sort of geographic targeting, looking at infrastructure improvements, and looking for a minimum yield really. So we sort of tend to, our strategy is to look at inflation plus 4% in terms of our income, so to look at our gross yield. And from that to really take into account, that all the landlords I think forget is that there's quite a ratio between your gross and your net rent. So a lot of landlords forget to take off the service charge, the ground rents, the void periods, the annual gas safety certificate, your obligations of a landlord, as well as general wear and tear to the property. And actually what may be, quite an attractive gross yield isn't what the net yield will be, and that's what matters, how much revenue you actually produce.
Absolutely agree 100%. So you're really focusing on getting that positive net cash flow, because of course that allows you to stay in the game longer to perhaps benefit from any capital appreciation.
That's correct. I think you've got to really look at your ultimate net figures, whether that's your capital value, whether that's taking into account your purchase and sale costs when doing a property trade. So although again there may be the margin looks attractive, what you actually need to take into account is run a proper comprehensive profit and loss account, which takes into account your monthly interest if you're servicing with debt, takes into account your agent's fees, your acquisition costs, your stamp duty, and also a contingency, which is a definite essential part of your profit and loss factor. So allowing that contingency, so you've always got some spare funds if things go wrong. Well,
such good advice there, and as we like to say at Property Tribes, the numbers never lie.
No,
you can rely on them, can't you? Now let's talk about you also do property developing, and you'll take on quite big projects, won't you?
Yeah, we'll sort of buy any type of property, whether it's below market value, because that's where we're going. We've got a trading angle, so that's our angle there. We're asset managers. We look at ways to add value. So in every property we appraise, I'm always thinking about what may we be able to do with this property. Is it in an area that warrants going in, a loft conversion? Does it warrant a basement? Mainly only London and parts of the home counties where the price per square foot is high enough to warrant basements, but it's still a thought for us. Reconfiguring the layouts, can we improve it? What's the optimum layout for each property? Would it be a benefit for us to refurbish the property as opposed to maybe just selling as is? So we may buy a derelict or unmodernised property. Is it worthwhile us flipping it in auction or selling it private treaty? Or is there an upside in us asset managing it and adding value ourselves through our experience? So we've pretty much got subcontractors employed throughout the whole of the year, and that ranges from ground workers, bricklayers, electricians, plumbers, the whole spectrum really. So I really thrive off actually keeping other people in work and busy as well as ourselves. If we're making money, then other people are as well.
I think you'll agree with me that the sort of market conditions at the moment, that we're almost in uncharted waters. Do you feel that there's one particularly lucrative strategy to be following at the current time? Do you think you are going to go more to the trading side of things than the landlord side of things when the clause 24 kicks in?
I think with us is that our business strategy is we're in this for the long term. So we're not in a business where we're going to be selling as a company as a multiple of our profits. We are long-term investors, and we want to have a substantial portfolio. We already own in excess of 60 properties. We want to own at least 100 properties within the next 2 years.
Right.
So that we've got very ambitious growth targets, which we're confident we will meet. We also are professional landlords, so as well as we want to diverse our portfolio, I think that's the main thing, is we can't have our cake and eat it. We'd all love to be flipping properties every day, but at the same time, just stock is quite scarce at the moment. I'm sure most estate agents will agree that it's vital to get stock on the market, and there is generally in most regions, save for some, quite a scarcity of stock at the moment. So we need to be able to diversify our portfolio. We've got a part of the business which is asset management. We've got part of the business which is developing. Another part of the business is our rented stock, so us as managing our properties. And also our bread and butter, really, if you like, which is trading. So flipping properties, buying below market value and then reselling by traditional methods. We buy from landlords and we honour the tenancy. But, at the same time, we want to make sure the tenant is comfortable in their houses. So I always try and upgrade the energy efficiency of the house. So I feel it's a good investment for me to actually invest in, let's say, an A-rated condensing boiler, as opposed to maybe save the money tenant on their outgoings, on their utilities, and also it actually helps the capital value of my property. So I would rather be putting in a nice decent boiler, making sure that the bathroom is in good repair and I haven't got worries about leaks. If it's a flat, for example, problems with common problems such as sealant around baths, and making sure that the property is watertight. If all of our properties that are currently rented have decent boilers, then that's one less problem for me to worry about. I haven't got to dread the moment the gas engineer goes there for his annual certificate and tells me, sorry, there's a few issues with this one. We'd rather make sure if we've got a boiler in place, we tend to go with boilers with 5 or 7 year guarantees, and then we're covered for all eventualities, really.
Absolutely. It sounds to me like you very much believe that prevention is better than cure, which is a good attitude to take. Just to finish then, Jason, is there any tip, number one tip, that you would give to the Property Tribes community about investing successfully in property? Is there a lesson that you've learnt the hard way?
I suppose the biggest advice really would be to always be aware of a rainy day or a problem. So make sure you don't over leverage, over borrow on that property, have too much debt that you won't be able to pay if interest rates rise, which inevitably they will. We've all been waiting for the moment. We thought it may be not this year, but since the stock market and what's happening generally worldwide at the moment, you have to be aware of political risk as well. So I'd say always make sure you've got some spare capital available for as I said earlier, if the boiler does break, you can afford to pay that, and the investment. That you've always got the protection that if there is a problem, you've got the capital to deal with it.
Absolutely. Despite those threats you mentioned, are you going to keep the faith with property?
I think ultimately there is a stark lack of housing at the moment, and while that continues and with the population increasing, that's always going to be the case. So ultimately, I've got a huge passion for property. It's what excites me. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning, and we're going to be investing for the foreseeable future, definitely.
Excellent. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, Jason. Thank you very much for sharing your insights, and good luck on your property journey as it continues.
Thank you. Thanks very much.